Einstein, whoops, who did the Brownian motion. Anyone know what Brownian motion is?
No.
Okay, so Brownian motion is if you put like a little bit of dust on water, and you watched it. You could watch it maybe in a microscope or a magnifying glass even. You would see it jiggling around, and people weren't really sure what was going on with that. So Einstein explained that in a paper in 1905, and actually that was one that he was more famous for initially than his special relativity. The other one that he was also famous for that year was the photoelectric effect, where if you had an electron that hit, or excuse me, if you had light that hit a certain metal, it would actually send an electric current. And it would depend on the frequency of the light, not on the intensity of the light. And of course, you guys know the special theory of relativity. So the E equals mc squared. And there's actually a whole lot more to it than that. And then also his general theory of relativity. Okay, so let's go to the next one, is in that. So, all right, does anyone know who was the one that posited the Big Bang? This one doesn't turn out to be as good as I was hoping. Okay, so actually, I'm guessing that you don't know that it was this fellow from Belgium who was actually the one who actually developed the Big Bang theory. So his name is Monsignor Georges Lemaitre, and he actually was one of the ones that initially had talked with Einstein about, oh, here is a possible solution, a cosmological solution to your theory. And Einstein had said, oh, well, you know, you've got the math right, but your physics is a little off. But actually it turns out that Lemaitre's physics was right on. He actually did predict that here was the Big Bang, and he lived long enough, just by a few months, but he actually did hear word that they did get word from the observatories in the Bell Labs that they got microwave background radiation, which was one of the things that his theory had predicted, that remnant of the Big Bang would actually be there. So that actually concludes my quick, admittedly very sketchy coverage of the history of science. I tried to get some of the ones that you probably haven't heard too much before, and I'd be happy to share out any of the information if you're interested, and please with any questions.
What made him propose the Big Bang Theory?
It was actually one of the possible solutions. So if I took the general relativity, I said, all right, well, what can happen? Either I have this universe that's sitting here without expanding or contracting. So that was the steady state model, and that's actually what Einstein initially had, and he added an extra term in there so that it would behave that way. This guy said, well, I really don't need that extra term, and if I don't need that extra term, that means at some point these things must have been small, and so I must have had what he called a primeval atom. So it started with a tiny bit of something, and then it expanded out. So exactly his idea was partly because he didn't think that the steady state was actually a good, viable solution. So he chose that other one as another solution.
Okay.
Yeah, there was actually another person that came before him, a person by the name of Friedman, who was in Russia, who went to Perm State University, which sounds a little bit like Penn State University. And I was thinking of including him. However, no, Friedman actually did some interesting things, but he did all the solutions that he could think of. So he did ones that were that the universe was expanding, that it was contracting, that it was staying the same. And that's, so he didn't really get complete credit for that. So now, how about if I ask you guys some questions about, could you each tell me something that you've learned today? Okay, go ahead.
Relativity.
What?
The theory of relativity.
Theory of relativity.
E equals mc squared.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, anyone else? Or shall we just go, how about we just go along the back row? Starting with...
Benjamin Franklin.
Okay, yeah, Benjamin Franklin, right. He did stuff with the Gulf Stream. Great. Okay, next. Green shirt.